Shalom again, everybody. Ariel Tzadok here from the KosherTorah School, found online at www.koshertorah.com. Bringing to you today's daily Sefer Yetzirah lesson. This is now lesson 34 in our series. And of course, we dedicate these classes to the health, the safety, the well-being, and the prosperity of everybody around the world who are facing trials and tribulations at this time with our present circumstances. We're all in this together. We're all going to get through this together. Strength and power. That's what it's all about. Now, we are right now beginning our conclusions and a wrap-up of chapter 1 of Sefer Yetzirah. We're going to read the 14th Mishna from Rabbi Chaim's work here. And the 15th is very, very just simple summary, if you will. But 14 here is going to, well, shall we say, take us down the rabbit hole, taking us into deeper territory. And the reason why that is because if you remember, we went into a process a few Mishnayot back of translating theory into practice. Well, right now, in our application, we're going to learn the correlation of the three letters, which we said are the materialization of the HaDaR power in the three-dimensional space that we know so well. So if you remember, HaDaR power is the expansive, the restrictive, and balanced. Hesed, Din, Rachamim in Hebrew. And we all know those forces. Every thought that we think, every act that we do, every feeling. Say, yeah, let's go out and do this. Well, okay, this is how I do it. That's pretty much sums it up. Well, the forces and the energies in life itself, remember what we're talking about. The sefirot are the life force energy. All right, it is the power underlying what we call chi, nefesh, orgon, kundalini, prana. All of those words are the materialization of the prima matter, that fifth element, which is the source of life in this dimension. But that life itself comes from even higher, more pure? I don't know if I should use that word. Higher, more complex, or maybe even simple, just different dimensional forms of it. All right? For those of you who are familiar with the martial arts or oriental healing, and we refer to things like chi or prana, in our Torah we call it nefesh. Think about that. This is the materialization in our three-dimensional world. But there is a fourth and fifth dimensional experience or reality of that beyond which we understand. That's that belima element that we've talked about throughout this entire chapter. But now we've taken the polarities, that HaDaR energy, which we're going to see later, materializes in the three letters called emesh, which are, again, the forces of ruach and water and fire. Not literal air, water, and fire, but if you will, they're energetic sources. We've correlated them to three letters which are going to materialize the formation and structure of these energies as they're going to congeal now. Now, if I give you that power, think about it. I'm going to give you a lock, and I'm going to give you the key. And you're going to be able to put the lock into the key and open it up. And there will be all kinds of tremendous power in it. Question: can you really be trusted with that? Can you handle that? Are you responsible enough that I can give that to you? Think about it within a context that we all understand today, in the here and the now. As we very well know, here, for example, in the United States, firearm ownership is a very, very important thing for the vast majority of the citizens in this country. Whereas at the same time, people are very concerned about having those legally possessed and what we believe naturally endowed rights of having firearms in the hands of the wrong people who are going to abuse them to hurt themselves, God forbid, or others. It's all common sense. This is right now in the political world, right? The big deal today. Even people who are usually in very strong support of gun control themselves own guns because they realize the nature of the responsibility to protect themselves and, in their eyes, how they need to protect others. So, without getting too political in that issue, let me use this as an example. You understand the concept of having a firearm, meaning that you must have serious levels of responsibility in the possession and ownership of such an item. Simply because it's not just something for sport target practice. It could be a weapon of destruction that can only be entrusted in the hands of those who can be responsible with them. We all know this. Can you imagine if we had public ownership of things like nuclear weapons? Everybody who's got the money is going to go out and buy and have their own personal nukes. What happens if somebody gets angry or upset or frustrated and wants to blow off a nuke? All right? Oh my goodness. We can't even imagine the destruction. This energy of what we're talking about here is far more destructive than that. It's far more constructive than that. So, unless an individual has shown oneself, male or female, Jew or Gentile, no difference here. We're all human beings. All right, Tanakh Eliyahu Rabbah, chapter 9, for those who want me to be rabbinic and quote to you rabbi sources there. Okay, so for you guys. But now, this power that I'm talking about is a tangible, actual power, which brings the ability of 4th and 5th dimensional consciousness into our 3rd dimension, enabling you to do stuff. One who has this ability throughout our tradition has always been called a master of the good name, or a Baal Shem Tov. That was the name applied to the founder of the Hasidic movement, Rabbi Yisrael ben Eliezer. There were others before him, a Rabbi Yoel, Rabbi Eliyahu. They were all members of what became known as a secret society called the Hidden Ones, the Nistarim. Well, yeah, I mean, in all due respect to the conspiracy theorists out there, you do have secret societies. And though they're not out to take over the world and control your brains and, be reptilians like these moron idiots talk about on the internet, pontificating absolute nonsense to put fear in you. No. Just like the Bible says, this book in Daniel chapter 4, you have the watchers. So the watchers work through, like the book of Amos. Bible stuff says here that God speaks to his messengers, his prophets. And this is the secret of those who have and understand the power of these applications correctly. So when we look at the correct applications of Yud and Hey and Vav to the 6 dimensions, you're going to see multiple different opinions of them. Here, we're going to get through this in just a second here. But for this class, I actually printed up a worksheet. This is it. You'll see a link to it in the notes below, so you'll be able to get this. And it's going to outline for us 2 separate opinions, 2 separate perspectives of how the letters Yud Kei Vav correspond to our directions. All right. Now, in my deeper class, the 40-hour Sefer Yetzirah class I talk about, this is the handout I do for that class. And this handout, as you can see, is even different. I mean, you can put pause and you'll see the difference between this one and the other one. Different strokes, different ways. Before I even get into the text, let me explain to you about this lock and key like I was talking to you about. Now, we have the 6-dimensional planes. East, west, north, south, up and down. 3-dimensional space. 6 directions. We have the 6 permutations. You have 3 letters, and they can be written in 6 different ways. So technically, you have 6 locks and 6 keys. So which one goes into which? Well, it should be easy to figure out, no? I could take each of the 6 keys and put it into each individual lock, and one of them should open it, correct? Correct. So therefore, I can take one of these permutations to each direction and see which one works. How do I do that? I didn't tell you that yet, did I? So, moving on. Each of these 3 letters in application to one direction. All right? One of the 6 permutations is going to work with one of the 6 directions. But once you open up that direction with that key, you then have 6 subjective elements within each of the 6. So not only do you have 6 locks with 6 keys, within each lock and each key, it opens up 6 doors within each. So not only do you have 6 times 6, you have 6 times 6 times 6. 6 times 6 times 6. Do your math. You'll get 216, which is the numerical value of the Hebrew word Ariel, or lion, which is also the secret of the permutations of the 72-letter name going back and forth in Blue Masterphone. 216, like the verse in Amos says, right? The lion roars, who will not fear? The Lord God prophet, speaks to the prophets, who's not going to listen. This is that underlying secret that I talked to you about. So, you're going to ask me, well, Rabbi, we got all these different ways here. Which one is the right one? 216 different options? Teach me, Rabbi. Make it easy for me. And you know what my response obviously is going to be? No. Because even if I gave it to you, even if I said, this is the way, this is not the way, there's an old saying that I learned from Carl Jung, who quoted it from earlier sources. The right means in the wrong hands will cause the right means to work in the wrong way. In other words, I can give you the proper key and have you insert it in the proper lock. But because you are not in the right place, the key won't work for you. Whereas if you are in the right place, somehow, some way, intuitively, higher levels, you will know which key goes into which lock and opens it in which way to the inner doors. And intuitively, you will go through each of these doors, which in the earlier literature was called the Hechalot, or Merkava, ascent. This is the secret of the 7 doors. There's an old saying, I even saw it put in movies years ago, that the first of the 7 doors lies in the east. It can be seen where it is not. Lies in the east. Yeah. Because the Sefer Yetzirah, here we go again. Look under the column where it says Sefer Yetzirah. When you face east, that is called the face. You have to be facing east. Now here's a big deal. Yeah, I didn't even read our text yet. This is kind of like intro into the text. When you're talking about human consciousness as it's going to apply to the direction of space, where you face is everything. So for example, in the Chinese tradition, many of you, I'm sure, have heard of something called feng shui. Feng shui is the Chinese understanding of how all the pieces and parts of nature fit in together. And this is supposed to be on this side of the house, and that's going to be on that side of the house. And everything calibrates and correlates energy so as to maintain proper balance. But feng shui in the Chinese consciousness was built upon man facing south. Now, south in our tradition is wisdom, which is a good place to look. But our tradition teaches us to look east, not south. And therefore it shifts the paradigm. So the concept of feng shui, meaning everything having its place and proper, is, in our understanding, absolutely correct. And I have seen English expressions of feng shui, which seems to be one more interpretive and poetic than the other. But the original Chinese stuff is much more accurate for them in their consciousness. For those who are of different consciousness, you have to apply things in a different way. There's different consciousnesses for peoples. Carl Jung wrote about this in his 2 essays of analytical psychology. That yes, we have a collective consciousness, a collective unconscious, I should say. But within that, we have, if you will, like the spokes of the wheel. He calls that the racial subdivisions of the collective unconscious. In Torah literature, we call this the, if you will, nations of the world. Everyone, like a spoke, comes to the center. You understand now why there are 216 applications to how we can use the sefirot within a context? You see, you make the same mistake as so many others who are outsiders. You think there is one way, and that's the only way, and if I don't find that one secret way, everything else is a waste. You're so rigid. You're so much Indian. You say, well, unity. Unity means the integration of everything. The only singularity, which is one, is God. And we speak of that one being God as such a sublime, profound mystery that no one understands the singularity of it. But unity is the cohesion of all things. We teach in the Kabbalah that the whole purpose of creation was so that life itself could materialize itself in every possible combination. Sentient, conscious life in every possible permutation. That is why on Earth we have, I saw somewhere that in the entire history of humanity, we've had about 100 billion human beings. I saw that somewhere. It might be accurate or not, I don't know. But of that, 100 billion, that's each and every DNA different from the other. Stars, how many stars are out there in the universe? Go count them. Each one's different from the other. So this is life itself materializing in its multiple forms. So we're talking about the application of the letters and their forms of how the sefirot are going to express in three-dimensional space. You will make the mistake of thinking mechanically, singularly, and then there's one way. There's one way for you. There's one way for me. There's one way for the third party and the fourth party. Well, which is it? It's so confusing. Yes, isn't it? So for those of you who continue to look for an external answer, mazel tov, as we say, good luck. You can look and read the different opinions here. And I ran out of time today. This is like an introduction. In our next class, I'll get into the different system between the Sefer Yetzirah and what Reb Chaim Vital brings down from the Kuni Zohar. I'm not going to bring you down the other systems that I taught in my other works as well, because there you can go, and if you want to take that course, you go learn it yourself. But as a means of introduction, I want you to be more flexible, more fluid, being able to go and move with things. Because unlike many of my peers who want to didactically tell you this is the way, or try to impress you with academic intelligence. Oh, you have this opinion and that opinion and this way and that way. You know, all right, enough of the words. It's enough to give anybody a headache. What do I do? How do I feel? And I don't mean emotions feeling. I mean intuitively, psychically connecting. How does the fourth dimensional consciousness reach into my three-dimensional mind and guide me to know this and how to do it in the right way for me? And who am I? I am a single cell in the whole body of existence. And yes, as a single cell, I am just like all the other single cells of my part, of my heart cell, a lung cell, a blood cell, a this cell or that cell. And still, I have my unique individual experience. Collective, individual, working together in harmony. So, this is our introduction into the triads and how we're going to apply them. As I said when I began, this is the beginning of our conclusion of the chapter. In our next class here, this is going to be on connection here for lesson 34. So it's going to be sy20.34.pdf. You go look it up at koshertorah.com/PDF, all in caps, / again, sy20.34.pdf. And we'll cover this also in our next class. But understand the concept, understand the foundation, because if I give you a tool and you don't know how to use it, what good is it? Check out the courses they have for you online. For those of you who want to practice meditative techniques and experiences and stuff like that, it's available for you right now. Ariel Bar Tzadok, KosherTorah School, KosherTorah.com, at your service. See you in our next class. Shalom.